Hello, everyone. My name is Gitika Gorthi, and today I'm very excited and honored to be interviewing a very special space champion, Ron Rosano. Ron is a Virgin Galactic Astronaut number 17 on the Galactic 4 mission, and also expects to fly with Blue Origin, Space Perspective, and Worldview. He's the organizer of Galactic Unite Spacechats, connecting Virgin Galactic staff and astronauts with over 15,000 students from over 200 schools and 14 different countries. Furthermore, he's the creator and editor of the Suborbital Flight Journal, where he tracks all human suborbital flights, dating back to America's first space flight in 1961, adding personal experiences and anecdotes from commercial astronauts. And on top of all of that, Ron serves on the advisory council of the Astronomical Society of the Pacific, the board of advisors of Human Space Program, board of directors of the Nepal Youth Foundation, and is a fellow co-organizer of the Virtual Space Education Summit with me, Mark Wagner, and Anahita. As you can see, Ron is a visionary leader of the aerospace industry, and I've got to know Ron for the past year, and he's one of the most inspiring educators that I've ever come across. So I'm very excited to learn about his journey today. So welcome, Ron. Thank you so much for taking your time to inspire the next generation of aerospace leaders.
Thank you, Gitika. Great to see you. Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and thank you for being here. And I've been dying to ask this question to you since the day I saw that you flew to space. What was the experience like? I mean, what was your initial reaction flying to space and just seeing Earth from a completely different perspective?
Yeah, well, I've been working on that one for a while. You know, it's so many things. I think one of the first things I thought of when I came back that very day was, I don't think words are ever going to be able to fully describe the experience. It's something I put a lot of thought into, a lot of preparation into. It's profound and magical in a way, and transformative, and all those superlatives. You know, I'm still really kind of summarizing all my takeaways from it, but one that's really struck me is that seeing Earth in its natural environment in space, it's a very unique existence, our planet, as it is in the solar system, and our star in the galaxy, and our galaxy in the universe. I don't thinking in those kinds of terms. Earth is a rare thing, and additionally, we humans are a very unique existence on the planet. So, that's something that's really, struck me deeply, is that this is kind of a very delicate balance of our life on Earth, and sharing that is sharing that now feels like a duty, really, that I need to go out and say, hey, this is a real existence on this planet. You don't get a sense of that from standing on the ground looking up at the sky. So
I can still see the emotion that you carry when you speak about what that looked like for you. And some people can describe it, but as you said, I'm sure you're not doing justice to what you've seen and what that's done to you internally by going to space. And it's just, I really can see it with your eyes. So was going to space, once you saw Earth from that perspective, was it what you were expecting, or was it different? Like, did you have a different emotional feeling than you were expecting yourself to have, or was the view different from what you were expecting? Like, were there any differences to what you were expecting flying to space would be like?
Yeah, I'd say it was very different from what I expected, which was, I knew it was going to be profound. I've read Frank White's book Overview Effect. I've talked to Frank, I've talked to astronauts, and a lot of them say that, gee, even though I knew what I was looking for, it's not the same. And I felt that very much. I looked at probably tens of thousands of photos of the Earth in my lifetime, videos shot from the space station, and an idea of what that looked like. But seeing with your own eyes, even for just our 3 minutes, our precious 3 minutes of weightlessness, was Yeah, it's deeper than I expected. Yeah, for sure.
Through becoming an astronaut is the most intriguing part for me is the training part and the training aspect of it, because you mentioned you kind of had an idea of what you were going to look for. You had these 3 minutes. You probably went through not too much as a commercial astronaut, but you still went through weeks of training, I'm sure. So what did that training look like for you, whether it be physical training but also the psychological part of it? What was the mental training like to go to space and experience it? And do you think this training is done in an accessible way, at least with Virgin Galactic from your experience? And do you think others in the potential future, hundreds and thousands, could also undergo a similar training? And, if not, like, what can we change about this training, or how do you think this training will evolve over time?
Oh, I'd say for sure not an issue for anyone to go through this training. Essentially, all you really need is 3 days there at spaceport, and you're getting familiar with the equipment that you wear. Um, you'd figure out your movements within the spacecraft when you're weightless, because you don't want everybody like crowding up into one place. And just listen to the calls from the pilots. And there's a couple of checklists that we do at L-10, L-4 before release. Yeah, very simple. The whole journey is engineered for pretty much anyone to 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 go through very easily and take a lot away from it. There are some things you could do that I did additionally to just the 3 days at spaceport, and Galactic did great with those. I'm so excited for more and more people to do that. But you can also do weightless training. There's planes that give you a zero G experience, um, where you're weightless for about 30 seconds as the plane descends, and it comes up again and descends. So over the course of 16 parabolas, you can experience 30 seconds of weightlessness at a time. And that's great. There's a kind of a euphoric element of being weightless and floating. And there's also a centrifuge facility near Philadelphia where you could sit in a capsule, one person with a video screen, and as they spin the centrifuge, they move the capsule in a way that you feel the G forces exactly the way you'll feel them during a space flight. So I really wanted to do both of those and eliminate those as unknowns. Um, I don't, I wanted to go into the flight, not being surprised by those things, so I could be more open to everything else that was happening. Um, Mentally, I came, it took a while to get to where I ended up. And at first, I started, many years ago thinking, oh, on the space flight, all I want to do is look out the window. I'm not gonna toss candy or like bounce around, because you could do that on a weightless flight. Um, then I read a quote from Stephen Hawking that said, gee, you're out among the stars, you're in the universe. You should have some thinking about that. So I said, oh, yeah, I should be like thinking about Earth and the blackness of vastness of space. And then I read a quote from Dave Scott, who walked on the moon at Apollo 15. And he was on an exhibit of prints from the moon. And someone asked him, gee, Dave, some people said the moon looked kind of orange. Some people said looked kind of brown. What do you think? And he says, you see what you expect to see. You have to open up. And that really hit me. It's like, okay, great. That's the way to go. I'm not going to try and identify landforms or, you know, figure out this mountain range or like see how far I can see. I'm just going to be open to however the experience presents itself to me, and be ready for whatever comes into mind, and not look for anything in particular.
I think especially that last statement of trying to go in, not expecting to see what, like be like, oh, this is exactly what I want to see. This is what it's going to look like. I'm just going to revisualize it there, like, yes, yeah, I think, that can help, make us misinterpret maybe, or not even take, we just won't take in the moment because we're too busy looking for what we think it should look like to really embrace the moment. So yeah, that's a really great saying, and I'm glad that for your flight you were able to go in with that mindset of, I'm just going to experience and take in everything that I see. And I'm sure, like, just from the way you're saying, like, it described it, it was magical experience for you. And a lot of times, so many people, you probably see it on social media all the time, and this is even a common question that's talked about, even like within the space industry itself, is, so many people ask, why are we investing in commercial space specifically? We understand advancing technology within NASA with a lot of commercial space companies, what they're doing with rockets like SpaceX. But why do we need to spend so much money to send people to space as opposed to robots or rovers? Why do you think that this experience was so valuable for you, and an experience that you think that everybody should have a chance to see as well? Why do you think, so you advocate a lot for younger students to have this experience themselves? Why do you think it's a valuable experience from them? What is that takeaway that you got that you think everybody else should also have the chance to explore and to get?
Yeah. Well, a few things. Touching on the idea of like the unique existence. One thing that really struck me was the very thin blue line of our atmosphere. It's amazing. Um, and it's remarkable, astonishing to see, what that looks like. And I can show you a picture of that if you'd like, if you want to enable sharing.
Yes.
And but one thing in thinking about spending money on space, all the money that's spent on space is spent on the ground, on Earth. It's spent on people in their jobs, on materials, on space. It's not like money in space just goes on a rocket and goes away. That's all spent here on the ground. And really, the best way to understand Earth is from space. So, I encourage people to think about it in that way. Also, it's important to realize. I think it's very important to realize the existence of our Earth, as it exists in space. Truly, you don't need your regular day to day. You need food, water, sleep, shelter. You don't need to think about the Earth and its presence in space. But in the long term, humans need to realize we're on this spaceship Earth together, and we need to steward that existence and take care of this planet, because you don't have a sense of that from on the ground looking at the sky. But it's essential in the long term existence of humans, I think. And here's the photo that was taken from a camera mounted at the window. And what struck me was, and I was transfixed by this, is that blue line that crosses diagonally between the surface of the planet, blackness of space, and that's our atmosphere. Everything alive on Earth is within that atmosphere, and it's astonishingly, shockingly thin. You just don't get a sense of that from the ground. And being above the atmosphere and looking down on it and seeing it on the horizon like that is it's a very remarkable thing. And I really look forward to the future where more and more people can see that and have that realization.
Just seeing the earth from that angle. I mean, we've seen so many pictures, but every time I think it's just so beautiful. And I'm seeing it in person. I can't even imagine how that felt like for you. But if everyone can have that experience of seeing, or even just getting the realization that we're one team and we're part of space, we are in space, and we need to work to protect this beautiful planet, but also advance together. And making sure. I mean, we feel so tiny when we think about how big space is, and I think we can really hone in on that experience when people go to space and realize how we are one unit on Earth and we need to work together. So I think it's honestly, just even hearing you speaking about it, I can see how it's changed the way you speak about space, but also the way you think other people should experience space. So it's really magical. And so thank you for sharing that. And so as you were talking, I mentioned in your background, you do so many things related to space exploration, especially in inspiring the next generation of students with a lot of educational outreach programs. So how did you first, to backtrack into your life, how did you even get into the space sector? What was the aha moment that inspired you to be like, hey, this is an industry I want to go into. This is what I want to be a part of. Was it a natural occurrence since you were young, or was there one particular aha moment that kind of drew you into the space sector?
Well, thanks for recognizing that. And yes, a little bit of both, I'd say. Um, there was a natural curiosity and a wonder that I had as far back as I can remember about the stars in the night sky and the movements of the planets. And I thank my mom for taking me to the planetarium in San Francisco to experience that, learn the constellations. Um, but yeah, the Apollo moon missions were very much of an aha moment. I was 9 years old when they landed the first time, and going, seeing seeing the pictures and video that came back, hearing their talk about being on the moon. There's a great resource called the Lunar Surface Journal, which is what inspired me to do the Suborbital Flight Journal. And the Lunar Surface Journal tracks moment by moment all the time that the Apollo astronauts spent on the moon, the 12 of them. And you can go in and minute by minute hear what they were saying with mission control, follow their track while they were walking or driving across the moon. It's supplemented with video and audio and images of those times. So if you want to take an hour and just like, oh, let me walk outside with Neil Armstrong and like go step by step through his procedures, it's a great resource. And being able to walk outside at night and look at the moon and say, gee, there's two guys that are walking around up there, was transformational. And I'm hoping that this era of commercial space, where more and more people can fly into space, where really people from all over the world can buy a ticket to go into space for the very first time, could provide some of that Apollo era kinds of inspiration to students. And I really strongly believe that, you know, people your age and even not, even older will have the chance to go to space in their lifetime, way sooner than I did at my age. So I'm excited for that.
Yeah, and first off, just starting off with the planetarium, I think so many of us can relate with that. There's always museums or a classroom, a subject in a classroom that you learn that really just gives that initial spark and curiosity for what's outside in this world. I know, like for me, it was like the aliens and visiting
Mhm.
the Air and Space Museum near my house. So I think that we all have these common goals, but also especially what you said of the Apollo mission gave you that realistic touch to it, like, oh hey, they went to space, they're walking on the moon, I can do that one day, or I can be a
Yeah.
part of this industry. That sense of realistic confidence and the way the mission brought that for you, I think is so important. And I 100% agree that I think the commercial missions are doing the exact same thing now. When you see so many incredible diverse astronauts from all across the world having the
Yes.
opportunity to go to space, it
Yep.
inspires so many young kids to be like, I want to be like her, or I want to be like
Yeah.
him, I want to
Yeah.
go to space just like them. If she or he could do it, then I can too. So I think
Yeah.
it just gives this sense of like confidence that I can be a part of the space sector. And since so many more people are having the chance to go to space now as opposed to even 5, 10 years ago, I know so many more students are being inspired.
Yeah, it's great that Galactic and Blue Origin are all flying. A variety of people like Space for Humanity sponsored Katya Gazzetta and Sarah Sabry and Keisha Shahaf went with Virgin Galactic with their daughter. And Oliver Damon went with Blue Origin, who was the youngest person in space, at that time. So, way better role models than I am, being an older person. So, but yeah, it's great.
Yeah, it's just amazing to see what they're doing with commercial, and I think it's inspiring so many students. And the fact that all of you are, including yourself, Ron, like what you're doing is not just going to space, but you're bringing it back, and then you're taking the opportunity to spreading that to other educators, to other students. And I think that's the powerful piece, because if you just go and no one knows about it, then there's no impact. But if hundreds and thousands and maybe even millions of people can have the chance to see that, it makes a huge, huge difference. I think educators are the most important people. And so once you got that realization of, oh, I want to be a part of the space industry, how did you get to Virgin Galactic? I mean, did you have like a traditional path in the STEM
Mhm.
field, a non-traditional path? And in that process, in that journey of becoming this educator and the person in the space industry you are today, did you have any obstacles? And if so, how are you able to overcome them?
Yeah, thanks. So I don't really actually have a job that's related to space industry. I've been managing our family business in San Francisco for 40 years, taking care of rental apartments in a business started by my dad. But the space came peripherally to that, and that's been in an informal role, really, as an educator. Just I found a passion and a love for talking to students about space, and got started with a program called Project Astro uh, back in 1995 or so, where I had a teacher partner, and as an amateur astronomer, went in and helped the teacher give astronomy lessons and activities to students, and continue with that. And then, it's grown from that through NASA's Solar System Ambassador Program, and later with Galactic. I'm just a customer of theirs and an advocate for what they're doing. And there's a nice symbiosis of, their purpose for, sharing this message of traveling to space, and mine as well. So we're working kind of side by side with that. Um, yeah, obstacles, related to that are very much time related. It's like finding the time to do those kinds of things, because there's so much that can be done. And then the obstacle of flying to space. I mean, I when I was younger, I never thought I'd be able to fly to space, because the only people going to space were military test pilots, and I was not ready to do that. So I just, and I was hoping I'd have the chance, and stayed focused on it, and along it came. So yeah, I encourage students to just pursue something you really love doing, and you'll never know where you'll end up. 15 or 20 years ago, I don't think any of the people that work for Galactic now, or Blue Origin, or people that have flown with them, would have any idea that we're doing what we're doing now. So you never really know where you'll end up. So
I'm
yeah.
sure the younger you would be super happy to know that you flew to space and you got
Yes,
to have that
absolutely.
experience.
Yeah, yeah. Space like Starship could have changed a lot of things. They just had their second test flight that, even though they didn't fulfill all their objectives, they filled a lot, and they're coming a long way. And I think, boy, the 5 to 7, 10 year timeline of what they do, where Galactic could be, what Blue Origin could do, flying people to space, it's such an exciting time. Um, I think there'll be, enormous opportunities.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, one of the statements that you said that really stuck out to me was you flying to space seemed almost like impossible because you're not a test pilot. And I feel like regardless of how many times we try to break stereotypes, I think there's so many surrounding every industry, but
Mhm.
especially space. I also had this misconception for the longest time, thinking, oh, I would have to become a pilot or learn how to fly if I want to become an astronaut, or I have to become an aerospace engineer, or I
Yeah,
have to be in this certain path to be a part of the space sector, or
yeah,
even to go into aerospace medicine. I need to specialize in only one specific category of medicine. But then I realized, like, no, I mean, that's not true. I feel like if you have a passion, even if it's like tangentially related to space, you can find a way to connect it with, the space exploration aspect of things. Space
yeah.
is so interdisciplinary. We literally need everyone. And
Truly.
I have this realization every time I talk with people. So really, I think with your journey, it shows how if you really have a passion for something, you can work for it and you can combine all your interests together to find a way to get there. And persistence is key. I mean, you were mentioning it with space flight. You didn't think it was possible, but you stuck with
Yeah,
that goal and you
yeah.
you kept putting your foot in the door and you got
Yes.
yourself to space.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I would encourage people to think of them not so much as obstacles, but as speed bumps or hurdles to leap over. You'll have those, but be ready.
I like the phrase of a speed bump. I think that's a good one. I haven't heard of
Yeah,
that one. Yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
because a lot of times people are like, oh, obstacles, they're going to pull you down or you have to redirect your life. But I think just looking at it as something that's slowing you down and then you could pick up later, I think is a good way to look at it.
yeah. Obstacles could be insurmountable, but hurdles or speed bumps, that's just more of a challenge. You'll find challenges along the way.
Definitely, definitely. And one of the questions about the space industry I wanted to ask you is you kind of touched on this with commercial space, but what is the most exciting and most nervousing part about the future of space exploration? What makes you excited, but what also makes you nervous for the future of the space industry?
Oh wow, let's see. Excited for more people to go and for those opportunities to happen. And it's for the first time, it's been 20 years really that companies have been working on taking private citizens to space, and that's finally coming to fruition. And it's exciting to not have to be dependent on, government agencies like NASA or Roscosmos or ESA or JAXA, the Japanese Space Agency, and European Space Agency, to take people to space. Um, yes, challenges are things that, well, obviously, an accident in any one of those things would be tragic, and just in the course of exploration, that's probably going to happen, at some point. But we thought about that in our flight. It's like, gee, you're riding a rocket. And there's some added risk to that, but it's risky driving a car down a freeway as well. But in this case, the risk was very much worth the reward. You know, we knew that a lot could come of it, and we're ready for that. So I think you'll need more of that same kind of thinking going forward.
I know a lot of people have mentioned that similar fear of an accident. I think, people are afraid that if something happens and this momentum of commercial space, commercial flights will slow down. But as you mentioned, even with car driving or airplanes, like there have been so much fear, even like skydiving, like there's so much fear. There is still a possibility of something happening, but the risk, I mean, of course, it is a risk, but we have to develop protocols, develop proper systems, proper mechanisms to ensure a low risk. And I think as we keep advancing as an industry and we send more people to space, hopefully we don't relax on those protocols, and instead we're making them more efficient and effective
Yeah.
as an industry. So
Yep.
it's a fear that we must have, but also, as you mentioned, something that we need to keep going forward with and keep
Yeah,
improving
yeah,
on.
yeah. Don't let it stop you.
Exactly, exactly. Don't let fear stop you.
Yeah.
And my last and final question for you, now that we were able to learn a little bit about your journey as well as some of your insights on the space industry, you've given plenty of advice throughout the interview bits, throughout the interview segment. But my last question is, what final piece of advice do you have for young students regarding their pursuit of a passion in the space industry, the STEM field, honestly, any career? If you could go back in time and give your younger self a piece of advice, what would that advice be?
Yeah, I would say, like, this is a lot of astronauts say this too, is that find something you really love doing. Um, be ready to work hard at being really good at it. And, doors will open and opportunities will be there. It's funny to me in some ways that the educational system has you studying, science and English and history and math and this wide variety of things. And you don't need to be good at all of those. In the end, you could be a great historian, or you could be great at math, or you could be great at science. And don't worry about not being good at everything. Just find something you love doing, and you'll find your rewards in pursuit of that. And you know, really, and if you're interested in space, the space industry needs people in all varieties. Yes, pilots and engineers for sure, but there are graphic artists and photographers that are documenting it, creating movies, um, designing space shoots, people that are experts in fashion, logos and things. There are people that are great working with network data. Maybe they're gamers now linking computers, but spaceflight churns out terabytes of data that needs to be analyzed, managed, shared. That's a specialty. There are people in hospitality that are cooking meals and doing taking care of people that are going on space flights and working on spaceships. So there's a full-time, there's a barista at spaceport that makes drinks and coffee for people operating spaceships and flying to space. And there's regular office jobs, lawyers, people managing personnel, all kinds of things. So if you're really interested in space, you're not restricted to any one field or to only be a pilot or an engineer. You could be involved in many, many different ways.
Think that really encapsulates even the spirit of this interview series, because one of the founding like reasons for this was because when I was, as I mentioned, like younger in middle school and high school, I honestly thought aerospace engineering was the only career choice in space. And until I really started exploring, I did not realize space policy, space journalism, being a space
Yes,
economist, all of these
yes,
are real careers that
absolutely.
have a real like field, a real education, real, a real job. I didn't even know those existed. And every time I talk about this with some of my classmates or teachers or, other non-space enthusiasts, they give me like a, you're crazy look. Like, is that really a
Yeah,
career? Like, are those real things that you're talking about?
yeah,
And it's like, yes, it is. It's
yeah.
surprising, but it's true. And so with this interview series, everyone has such different jobs and such different backgrounds. And it goes to show how diverse space it really
Yeah.
is.
Well, it's such excellent work that you're doing. I'm glad to be a part of it. And for you to be reaching out like this, just as a personal interest, is outstanding. So thank you
Thank you.
for
Thank
all
you
you
so
do, of course.
much.
But thank you for doing what you're doing, because it's I really believe it's really important and impactful.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and thank you really for taking your time, Ron, for immediately replying to my email and for doing this interview. Just hearing you speak every time, and I truly mean it. Like every time I talk with you, I feel like you bring such great passion and energy for the space industry, and it inspires me so much. I think what you're doing, even if it's something that's not like your main career, but even the fact that you find time to do this within your day and you dedicate so much of your energy to it is just very, very inspiring for students like me. So really thank you so much for doing this interview. And I'm very excited to continue seeing how many times maybe you'll fly to space, maybe we'll fly to space together one day,
Yeah.
and
Yes,
see how it
you'll
goes.
find
So
space
thank
someday.
you.
You'll find space someday. I'm sure. I'm sure of that.
Thank you so much. And